Hi, in WEBCON BPS 24, a new feature was added for which I personally have waited a long time. And this is the REST API for importing applications. WEBCON already published a blog post about this new functionality. And in this blog post, it was also described how the command line utility can be used for importing the application. This is provided in the new tools folder, which was previously the migration tools folder. While you can, well, it's also described in here how to set up the applications and how it's already everything is done. There's also described how to define what should happen during the import. There's a configuration JSON, in which you can define what should happen for each element which you previously selected in the import file, import dialog. A little bit unfortunate for my personal case is that this command line hides the usage of the WEBCON of the REST API. That's maybe good for most of the users, but I wanted to have an example how this REST API is actually used. In this knowledge base article, we only see the reference to Swagger and how all of these methods should be used. So this wasn't something I wanted to. This is something something I didn't really like, and I wanted to add something about this. For this, I've created some PowerShell script, which can be used, or you can also take a look at how to call all these REST API functionalities. But let's make a little example of such an import which can be used here and is configured. Here we have the target database in which I want to import something. I have two business rules in here, one which should be preserved, which value shouldn't be overwritten during the import, and one which should be overwritten. Both have the same value, which I've changed in the import database. Here we have the other database from which I've created an export package with one new additional rule, and the other two. Both of these have the value from export database, so that we can see how the import handles this. Let's head over to the configuration. If you want to define something that in the configuration file, we can define which elements should be overwritten. We cannot define which elements shouldn't be overwritten, but we have to define what should be overwritten. So I have here this GUID, which maps to the business rule which should be overwritten. I'm not sure whether I like this. I would probably have also liked an option to exclude objects rather than include those which should be overwritten, but that's the way it is. And something important, which is also highlighted in the knowledge base article, is that if you define something which should be overwritten, then the corresponding property that everything should be overwritten will be treated always as false. Even if you say it's true, then the system would treat it as false. And now let's take a look at the import package, the script, what I've created. Here we are in the PowerShell folder, and this utility functions contains all the main functionality. And yeah, what's only left is to create to configure the database ID, the import file path, and the configuration file path. There's also some WEBCON configuration file in the auth folder, which contains the target environments and the client credentials. But you can find more details about this on my blog post. Now let's run the script. And this will get a token, start the import session, upload the file in chunks if necessary. The default value is at the moment 300 kilobyte. And then it pulls the system whether the import was completed. And after, at least after a maximum of 60 seconds, the pulling stops. And it finally writes the state, how this was done. Everything else. So let's take a look over at the WEBCON Designer Studio. Let's refresh it. Check it. Value in import database, value in import database. Refresh everything. And we have the new value. We have the value business rule, which shouldn't be overwritten, and the value, the business rule is the value that it is expected that this should have been overwritten. It's somewhat not really good for my mind, because I really would like to define which shouldn't be overwritten. It's something like, yeah, I have to get used to it, but at least we can finally now do it. And if you want to take a look at the functionality, which is behind the import package, you can take a look at the utility functions, which has two functions. This is the main function for importing the package. Here we are going to start the import and upload the file in chunks in the PowerShell session. And in the main functionality again, we get the authentication token. It's first start the import. Actually starts the import by uploading the configuration file for the session. This starts the import. Before you only upload them, and as soon as the configuration file is uploaded, the import gets started. So it means you always need one, even if you don't, if you just use the default configuration. And afterwards, there's some little loop which waits until the import has been completed. I also take a short look at the configuration file, and I'm not sure how I should set it up based on the knowledge base article. So I created some classes, which I then used to configure everything. Here I'm getting a new configuration object, set some properties in here, or maybe all of the properties, and I played around with it a bit, but commented out those which I haven't used in my actual configuration. And at the end, this configuration is outputted to the import parameters JSON. Here we see the GUID, which of the business rule which should be overwritten, and yeah, this was the result. Thanks for watching. And if you want to know more, just head over to my blog.